Delighted to be with you kids on another Tuesday evening, in this case in the middle of the summer. And we'll begin by addressing our first question from somebody who sent this in ahead of time. And please feel free to do that. Send letters to me at Greg at reallove.com, and we'll see if we can get to your question on the video chat. Maybe not on the same week that you sent it, but eventually. The first viewer says, my brother and his wife have a 17-month-old boy. At what age do you suggest teaching a child not to scream and demand? I think he mostly does it when he's tired. It would seem he's a bit young to learn, but I'm not sure. Oh, he's not too young to learn. Everywhere I go, I watch little kids, 17 months old, sometimes earlier, and they scream. First they ask for something, usually, when they haven't been thoroughly trained to scream. They ask for something, their parents ignore them. Then they ask louder. Their parents still ignore them. Then they start screaming. And then eventually, if they scream loud enough, the parent turns to the child and goes, and addresses the child's needs. Well, what does the parent think that he or she is teaching this kid? The parent just trained the child to scream. No kidding. Because they didn't do anything until they were screaming, then they responded. So what do you think gets cemented in the kid's head? The kid goes, if I don't do anything, nothing happens. If I do a little, nothing happens. If I scream loud enough, well, now I get what I want. Well, good gosh, that's like going to a screaming school. So what can you do differently? Well, in the first place, if a child speaks, you have to stop what you're doing and listen. Every screaming child I've run into, short of a child who has a nail through his foot, every screaming child I've seen has been trained to do that by the parents. It's a parental problem. So if the child says, Dad, I want to, you have to stop what you're doing and listen to your child. Now, what a horrible thing for us to have to do, pay attention to our children. And yet, we don't. I watch this everywhere I go. I see it in church. I see it in stores. I see it in train stations. Here's the kid tugging on the parent's pants. And the parent does nothing. He continues his conversation with whoever he's talking to, or continues reading his paper. So the child escalates and escalates and escalates until now it's screaming, and then the parent leans over and says, stop screaming. Well, what did you expect the kid to do? You didn't pay attention to any of the clues. So the child speaks, the child tugs on you, the child whatever. You have to pay attention. Hello? You're the parent here. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to give the child what the child asks for. If the child says, I want a bowl of ice cream before dinner, doesn't mean you have to give it. But you do have to pay attention to the request. Every single time. I know, what a drag. But if you're not prepared to do this, then you shouldn't have been a parent in the first place. It's our job as parents. So you pay attention to this kid. Now, children have a million ways of communicating. And so what do we do if a child is screaming? Children communicate by frowning. They communicate by tugging on your blouse, skirt usually, but whatever you're wearing. Children aren't picky. And so if you've got a child who's unusually demanding, screaming, for example, you have to realize that the child is trying to say something. By the time he's got to screaming, and see many children who've been trained to scream, of course, go straight to screaming because they've learned that anything short of screaming doesn't work, which of course is the parent's fault. So you got a screaming kid. The child's trying to say something is wrong. I want something. So rather than tell him to shut up, which we usually do because we're trying to teach him not to scream, well, we've blown it a million times before then, so we have to train them the right way to communicate. So if the child is screaming, listen. Ask them. I mean, if it's a baby, we know that if a child is screaming, we check them and we see if they're wet or hungry or poopy or whatever they are, and then we just take care of it. When a child gets older, we figure they should communicate in words. But see, if we've already ignored them 100 times, they're going to scream. So now if a child is screaming, we tend to want to modify their behavior. Listen to them. So say to the kid, so I'm not, because I've done this with many kids who are screaming, either just if they were in my presence or if they were with their parents when I'm trying to show the parents what to do. So let's say you've got a child who's on the floor having a tantrum, screaming. Then I get down on the floor with the 17-month-old and I say, I can't understand you. Now it depends on the verbal skills of the child. So if you've got a kid who can't talk yet, then I say, show me what you want. And if the child keeps screaming, then I say, I don't understand your screaming. I would like to, and you say it in just this tone and with just this volume. See, if a child's feeling poorly attended to, if he screams and then you go and go, what do you want? And you pay him that kind of attention. As soon as you become anything other than peaceful, you rewarded the child. All the child wanted in the first place mostly was your attention. And so if he screams to get it and you reward it by jumping on the field of death with them, by getting all excited, then the child learns, this is cool. This is a great way to control my parent. Instead, just as calmly and quietly as can be, you say, I don't understand you. So depends on their age. If they can't speak, point to me what you need, show me what you need, get up and I'll get up with you, take them by the hand, just take their little pudgy fingers and wrap them around your finger and say, stand up with me and go show me what you want. Almost every kid will do that. He'll show you what he wants. If he doesn't, then you say, I don't understand you when you're screaming, so now you have to be down on the floor with your face in the child's face. I'll be back in a minute, and when you can show me or tell me what you want, then we'll be able to have a discussion. But I don't understand you screaming. And if they're disrupting what you're doing, or you can't hear, go in the next room. Then you come back in a couple of minutes, and you say, well, I still can't understand you. Or you wait till the child comes and finds you. Children only do a thing because it gets them something. So if a screaming child doesn't get what he wants, and he won't if you don't understand what he says, and you say, I require clear speech, clear, quiet speech, before I can understand you, then the kid will quit screaming because you give him zero reward for it. They don't keep it up if it doesn't work. They learn that if they want something, they have to speak to you, like this. And if you reward that, then you either give them what they want or you give them a sensible conversation about why they can't have what they want. Then the kid goes, cool. So talking calmly is more productive. We're the ones that train them to do the dumb stuff. Here's a viewer who says, I have a problem about seeing people who they are when I'm dating. I've probably lost many relationship opportunities with good people because of this. Even though I am overweight myself, I am repulsed by women who are overweight. A couple of years ago, I met a woman who was fun, exciting, great personality, but she was extremely overweight. I accepted the first date because she asked me and I was too afraid to say no, but then I didn't return any of her calls for a year. I could only think about her weight. A year later I called and found out that she'd just gotten married, and then, we are so nuts, then I was hurt. This is so typical of us human beings. We don't want it, but if somebody else wants it, then now we want it. Kind of like we're four, I think I'm so afraid that if people see me with a fat woman, they'll think less of me. That's quite an insight. I even started to exercise because I've heard from many people that I need to be the type of person that I want to attract. I'm studying real love, and my work relationships have greatly improved because of it. So what can I do to overcome this fear? My real love wise man told me it's okay not to be attracted to larger people as long as I still see them as lovable and acceptable the way they are. Any suggestions? Well, you can only be as loving as you are. So you can't pretend to be otherwise. So if at this particular point in your life you're not unconditionally loving enough to be able to entertain the possibility of a relationship with somebody who's overweight, well, okay. It'd be silly for me to tell you, well, just buck up and expand the visions of your mind and start accepting overweight partners. If you can't expand your possibilities at this point, well, then you can't. So don't date overweight women at this point. But don't quit, because you may be passing by absolutely the perfect woman on the planet for you, and she packs on a few extra pounds. Wouldn't that be dumb? So what can you do? Live the principles. Pretty simple. Tell the truth about yourself. Talk to people and say, hey, I'm superficial and I'm selfish, and at this point in my life I can't date overweight women. Well, okay. But talk about it. Tell people. But don't just say, I'm not attracted to them. That's part of it. Say, I really have to have the imitation love that goes along with having a thinner woman on my arm so that people will think well of me. I need the physical pleasure that comes from looking at a thinner woman. Tell the truth about the whole deal. You're still not loved and loving enough where you could entertain a relationship with somebody who had what you consider to be a physical flaw. Tell the truth about it. And get enough love from other people in a group, from friends, other guys, whatever, to where you feel accepted for being superficial. And to some degree, you are being. Okay, notice I'm not telling you don't be. Just tell the truth that you are. Then you'll discover that the more loved you feel, the more genuinely loving you become, you'll discover that your vision for an acceptable woman, as opposed to being, I didn't realize how actually descriptive this is, but we'll go from narrow, or in this case thin, to broader, so to speak. And it will. Just as the more loving you become, you discover that you can accept traits in people you never thought you could. Your vision will become broader in terms of, oh wow, intelligence, physical characteristics, sense of humor, shared habits or interests in common. Whereas when we're not loving, we have to have imitation love in certain packages from people. So now, wow, they have to be, if we're musicians, well, they have to be a musician. And if we're, thin and tall, well, we'd have to have somebody thin and tall. And, you just discover that the possibilities expand as you become more loving. So play with it. See what happens to your parameters, to what you'll accept as you become more loving, and you'll figure it out, but you don't have to change who you are right now. Here's somebody who says, following is an email from my daughter, we'll call her Mary, about my niece's children. So she's writing this guy about his nieces. It's a little complicated, but one of the kids, who's not her daughter, it's the niece's kids, is Heather, age 12. And she and her older sister spend 1 week with their mother and then the next week with their father, and so on, a week at a time, because the parents are divorced. The older sister has recently gotten into a gothic stage with all the, black attire and chains and, that kind of thing. So here's the email from the daughter. The daughter says to her dad, who's writing me, I can't sleep. I'm sick with worry. I was on the computer late tonight, and Heather popped up in the chat. So please read some of the comments that I'm copying off the chat and tell me what I should do. My first gut instinct was to get in my car, go to where she lives, which apparently is like out of state, and rescue this child. I am sick with worry as she asked for my help, anyone's help. So here's just some of the essence of the chat. I'm not going to read the whole chat word for word because it kind of goes on and on. And people are usually less than precise in chats. But Heather said that she was afraid that her father might hurt her. So when her cousin, the person who was writing to the dad who's writing to me, when the cousin asked, she said that her father, remember she's 12, spanks her. Not with an object, but with his hand. Then she says, even if I squirm an inch, then he'll throw me around the room. She said that her older sister almost got her nose broken a couple of months or weeks ago because of their dad. And she's afraid to tell anybody because of the consequences from the father. So, it sounds like there's physical abuse going on, certainly, and almost certainly emotional abuse. You have to wonder when a dad's hitting his 12-year-old daughter with his hand, at least it occurs to you, is he using his hand for anything else? So at least it's a possibility. I'm not saying, gee, let's throw this scare into the situation, but these kids the kid who was writing on the chat was clearly frightened. So somebody's got to have a talk with this daughter. And if the daughter reached out to, mind you now I'm talking to the adult male here, if this kid is talking to your daughter, then probably your daughter ought to talk to her, by phone, if possible in person. I just don't know how far a trip that would be. But learn some more about it. And she needs to talk to your daughter on the phone in a situation where she feels like she's not being listened to. So on a cell phone, away from the house, or talk when there are no other adults in the house, so that she can find out what's going on. And get details about, hits you how often. Because I can tell you, sometimes kids say, oh, it's terrible, I was hit. And then you ask for the details, and it turns out that dad blows up and, spanks the kids, twice a year. Well, they're not going to haul the kid out of the house, from the Department of Children Protective Services. It's different, named different in every state. They're not going to haul a kid out of the house because she gets spanked twice a year. I mean, they've got kids, who are being locked in closets and, fed dog food and being neglected for years at a time. And to put them in a foster home situation, which is often not better, they're going to be a little bit reluctant to do that for an occasional spanking, where the kid isn't having broken bones. I know that sounds extreme, but shoot, it takes something to haul a kid out of the home, and it's pretty risky to haul a kid out of the home. You don't know it's going to be something better. So find out how often this is happening. Just ask her whether, have your daughter ask her whether she's being touched inappropriately. And, she can ask some pretty specific questions. Is he only just smacking you on the back or on the butt and then it's over? Just to kind of learn what's going on. And almost a broken nose. What does that mean? Because I've heard this account from kids when they were just shoved to the floor and their nose got close to the floor. Again, and I'm not minimizing it, any anger expressed at a child is wrong. You get that? Any anger. So I'm not going, oh, well, if there are no broken bones, so what? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that if you call emotional abuse any anger, which I do, any anger is wrong. And if you hauled kids out of their homes for receiving anger from their parents, there wouldn't be enough foster homes on the planet. We'd have to haul them all out. So you have to balance, the kid getting anger from the father with, is it going to be better elsewhere? That's the question. So an occasional spanking, too bad. And I don't mean, so what for the kid, but I'm saying that's going on all over the world. And we can't fix every one of those except to be more loving toward the parents and hope that we can love the parents so that they have more to give their kids. But this kid does need to have, both of them apparently, a place to talk. And if they can talk to your daughter, who would be their cousin, I guess. I'm not very good at that. First, third cousin, twice removed. Can't do it. But if they can talk, if she's feeling comfortable with your daughter, then call them. But don't turn it into a big thing unless you're positive something's going on. Because then the dad's going to take it out on the daughter. Now, if it's more than an occasional spanking, turns out the kid is being physically abused. The kid's being punched. There's anything sexual going on. But you better be sure this is pretty significant. Then, not just an unhappy kid, because those are everywhere. And we can't reach into other people's homes and fix every unhappy kid. We don't have the right to do that. That's the parent's job, and parents get to make mistakes. But if there's something serious going on, serious physical abuse, sexual, then somebody's got to talk to the dad. And preferably with the kid there. So that, the kid's in the room and you say, so what happened with your dad? And you watch the reaction of the father. And, if the father's like, well, you can't tell me what I can do with my kid, and I'm going to keep doing whatever I want, which is, a fairly common reaction, then you go to the police. And you tell the dad, well, if we can't solve this here, then we're going to go to the police. Or offer counseling, or now we're at the next level, and that's a longer discussion. But you need to explore it. And if it really is bad, and the dad's not immediately going to do something different, and you let him know you're going to continue to talk to the daughter, and things don't change, you got to do something. Here's a viewer who says, I've broken up with my boyfriend of 3 years, on and off relationship. I've read the Real Love books and I understand why we didn't make it. It's been about 3 months since the breakup and he won't let it go. It's obvious now that he's very addicted to imitation love. I've told him I cannot be in any relationship right now with him or anybody else. Brilliant of you. He believes he loves me, but it's not real love. How can I protect myself from him? I don't take his calls. He leaves long messages. I don't listen to them. He texts. I don't respond. I've told him that if he comes to my house or work, I will call the police, but he will not stop. Any suggestions? Wow, you're good. I mean it. You're stating to him in no uncertain terms, and this is important, at least once, and apparently you've done that, you have to say, I am finished. Now, it's helpful if you said, this isn't about you, I'm not ready to be in any relationship. And you say here that you said that. That's important. Because if you say it's something about him, then he'll say, well, I'll change. I'll put on a different hat. I'll wear different clothes. I'll blah, blah, blah. And so now will you take me back? Well, the likelihood that he's going to change is pretty small. No, you have to clearly say, no, we're done. Then, once you've said you're done and you say, I'm not going to respond to any kind of communication, email, Twitter, Facebook, letters, packages dropped by pigeons, I'm not going to respond to nothing. After you've said that, and he keeps it up, unless he physically gets in your face and somehow interferes with your life, honey, now you just ignore it. If he calls and leaves a message, you just don't respond. Because if you start responding to 1 out of 20, well then what's he going to do? This is easy, because I see people do this all the time. I get calls from my old boyfriend, and I only talk to him once in a while. Well, what you're telling him is that if he calls more, you'll respond more. If you respond 1 in 20 times and he's only getting one response every week, well, now he's going to call 7 times more so that he gets some kind of response every day. Puh, easy math. If he's calling on the phone, most phone companies have a service where you can enter, somebody's number and block that number so that you're not even bothered with these, ridiculous messages. And then you move on. And you said something just genius. You said, I'm not ready for any kind of relationship. Well, yeah. So then you don't go out and get another boyfriend. Don't do it. The tendency is, well, this didn't work out, so I'll try another one. No. Learn a whole lot more about real love and experience the love of other women first before you go out looking for another piece of trouble, because unless you're dramatically different, you're going to get the same guy. Different name, same guy. Here's a viewer who says, I'm learning how to parent my daughter according to the real love principles. She's going to college and plans to live here with me. I've said I would pay for room and board so that she can prepare for a career in blank. She's out of high school since December. That's generous that you're willing to pay for her room and board. She's out of high school since December 2008, and in February she got a job in a clothing store for like 12 to 15 hours a week, sometimes babysitting. She quit the job in June, telling them she had to go to the graduation exercises. Oh, well, that wasn't the reason, so don't fall for that. She quit the job because she didn't want to work. If she told her boss, I have to go to my own graduation, he had said, oh, okay. So she's clearly an excuse maker. That's code for liar. Got a job as a waitress for 3.5 weeks, part-time, in mid-July. I told her she needed to set up something for August, so she applied to 2 places, but did not get a job. Gee, there's a surprise. In today's economy, people are dying to get jobs, and she applied to 2 places after quitting one job, and you didn't say how she lost the other one, but clearly she doesn't want to work real bad, and you need to get that through your head. She doesn't want to work. What does she want? She wants you to support her, and apparently, so far, you are. She's paid me rent of $100, including food, and $40 for Sal. So you're making her life pretty nice, because $100 for a place to stay and eat. Please send me your phone number. I'll come live with you. She wants a car, but she has not chosen to work full time. She doesn't start school till August 20 and is not interested for looking for work now. In fact, she's in there on the couch right now watching television and says she'll look tomorrow. I feel frightened of her attacking and running behavior. I'm in a real love group and sharing my feelings. I want to stay off the field of death, but I know that I need to go into action because she's not doing anything. Irresponsible people don't respond to being told what they should do. They'll give you the million reasons why they can't. Oh, I'm too tired, I'm too sick, there are no jobs. Honey, in the last month she's put in 2 job applications. Are you kidding? She should be putting in 2 job applications an hour. She's not interested. So you tell them once what they should do, and then after that it's boring. Now you're just nagging, and it's just boring. Boring to you, boring to her, boring to hear. So don't bother. Instead, simply describe the requirements for her living with you. Not what you'd like to see. Oh, what a mistake. Parents say, well, I want. No. Wanting is negotiable. No, you tell her what is required. Here's what's required for you to be here. I'm just making this up. You can make your own requirements. But you have to pay rent of X dollars. You have to clean up X rooms of the house all the time. And you have to have a job. You have to have a job by September 14th at noon. You have to be very specific. If you just say you have to get a job, well, sweetie, she's willing to hear you say that. You have to get a job till she's dead. If you don't put a date on it, doesn't mean anything. And there's no sense putting the date far out, Because if you give her 3 months, she'll wait till the week before the deadline to look. So why bother? You just as well make the deadline, 2, 3, 4 weeks away. And then you say, now, you don't have to do this. You do not have to get a job. You do not have to pay rent. You don't. But you do to live here. So if you don't pay your rent, and if you don't have a job by September 14th at noon, then I will have all of your stuff put out in the driveway. If you're not dead serious, well, then she's going to regard this as a comedy routine. And to her it is. She keeps laughing at you while you do this. You come in the room, you fuss at her, sure, but she knows that within, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes tops, you'll get tired. She'll give you excuses, or she'll give you attitude, or whatever, and then you'll leave, and she goes, cool, man, I'll have to memorize that routine because I'll use it the next time. And she will. And apparently she has, because it works. It gets you to go away. You continue. She will not discuss finances, but she wants me to buy the car and says she'll pay me back. Oh, excuse me while I roll on the floor. You continue. I know this will not be possible. She's 18. She plans to go to college. In the past, she has spent her money on tattoos and piercings and tanning. So what's the likelihood she's going to pay you back? So I see her drowning in her getting and protecting behavior, and I'm not surprised because that's how I related to her. She calls it nagging. And of course she's used these getting and protecting behaviors. She doesn't feel loved by you. She hasn't been taught responsibility, and then you come along and you nag her, but then you go away and she continues the same behavior. So you've pretty much trained this monster. So what do? It always starts off with telling the truth. What doesn't? So you sit down with her and you go, man, I've really screwed this up. I've trained you to do this. She's going to love this part. But it's about time you told her. You say, I've trained you to be irresponsible. I've trained you to sit on the couch watching TV. I've trained you not to work. I've trained... and then when you don't, I whine a little bit, but then I don't do anything about it. So, I've put you here. But the old days is gone. You just tell her, we're not going to do that anymore. Because I care about you. This is the important part. Because I care about you, I want to teach you to be responsible, because you can only be happy if you're responsible. You have to be sure that you don't fall into the trap of having her believe that she has to change now to make you happy. It's not like, okay, I'm sick of having you lie on the couch. As soon as you say that, see, now you're teaching her responsibility for you. No, I'm teaching you this because I haven't taught you before and you're miserable. So this is part of being happy, honey. And it's not just, unique to you. Everybody has to be responsible to be happy. And so we're going to change some stuff. Now, what are we going to change? Well, let's name one thing. Loan her money for the car. Oh, no, that just doesn't make sense. Tell her that you're not willing to take the risk. You have observed her behavior, and the words mean nothing. If I've got somebody's words, here's what I like, and then I have their behavior, and it's the opposite of that, guess what I'll pick? Somebody says, I want to train for the marathon, and they lie on the couch all day eating Cheetos. Well, they don't want to train for the marathon. No, they don't. That would be a lie. And that's what you're going to tell her. I can tell from your behavior that you won't pay me back because you pay it on tattoos and piercings and you lie on the couch and you don't get a job. So, no, you won't. It's not that you might not. You will not. And you have to not be nasty as you do this. If you're irritated, you're done because she's going to react to your anger. So when she says, oh, but I will pay it back, you say, I know that there's a part of you that believes that, but it's not true. So you say, it's my choice. So even if you maintain that you will, it's still my money, and I choose, because it's mine, I get to, I choose not to give my money to you. I simply choose. Now I don't even have to give a reason whether you're going to pay me. I just choose not to. So if you want a car, then you would have to do whatever it takes to get a car, but that's up to you. But I choose not to give you the money. If she then gets angry and fusses at you, and like you said, rants and uses her getting protecting behaviors, then say, oh, well, I have another choice to make. At first, I've chosen not to give you the money for the car, and now if you choose to yell at me and use bad language and be unkind, I choose to be in a home that's peaceful. So you keep that up, and I will also choose not to have you live here, not for any price. And eventually, I actually recommend that you give her a date by which she will be gone, whether she has a job or not. Because she's having a real hard time learning responsibility in your house. Because as long as she's with you, she thinks she's doing it for you. Well, this is screwed up. You can't go through life going, well, I do the right thing because Mom wants me to. That's not exactly an eternal principle. No, you're responsible because it makes you happy. And she's just going to tie in responsibility to you over and over again. Then you continue. I sent her away to an emotional growth school in high school because she was not going to school. Another kind of a special school. I take responsibility that I did not know how to love her. Good for you. And you're going to tell her that. And you're going to read the parenting book 5 times. And you're going to learn how to do it differently. So I sent her away to live with her boyfriend because she wouldn't abide by the rules here. But that was fun. I feel like she's just waiting for me to tell her that she either works or does not live here. Well, yeah, probably, because she knows that's the right thing to do. And that's exactly what you will do if you want to teach her responsibility. I fear that she'll be a victim and do her running behavior and go live with her boyfriend again, where he and his family can call me the bad guy. See the problem here? She's holding you hostage. So feed me, take care of me, put up with my crappy behavior, let me do whatever I want, because if you don't, I'll go live with my boyfriend. And I'll make you feel bad, and I'll talk about you to other people. This girl's got you by a ring in your nose, and it keeps you from doing the right thing. People might talk about you. So what? The only question is, what does your daughter need to learn? Underneath it all, I think she's frightened of moving on to college. She says she's excited, but well, all right. Does she have to have a car? No. Unless she's going to school out of state, tell her to get a bicycle. Tell her to take the bus. And if she says, oh, it's so far, well, great. Then get an apartment closer to the college where you'll actually have to, pay the rent and, work in order to live there. Everybody thinks that they owe their kid a car. That just absolutely puzzles me. Where is this written? Is it in the dictionary, the Bible? I didn't give any of my kids cars. I went all the way through college without a car, and then went to medical school and rode my bicycle to school, which was, like 10 miles away. And I rode it through the middle of traffic, and I rode it in the rain, and, too bad. And I did just fine. Good exercise. But, she's going to say, I'll have to have a car. Nah, you really don't. Bicycles are just excellent, or buses. And if the bus doesn't go right to the college, which is unlikely, it probably does, she can ride a bike to the bus stop or wherever. And many buses in most cities now have a rack on the bus for the bike. So she can go to the bus, go to the closest stop and pick up. Lots of things you can do. But she's got to be given time limits for this. You have to have a job by blank. You have to, and then eventually move out. I mean, she can't live with you forever. You got to pick a time, and why not soon rather than later? Especially since she's completely ungrateful for what she has. Not ungrateful to you. It's not like, well, if you're not grateful to me, I'll throw you out. She didn't understand gratitude at all. She thinks she's entitled to everything. Well, show her how entitled she is. See if she can, find a place on her own, live in a homeless shelter for a while. That's sometimes a real eye-opener for a kid. Here's somebody who says, I've just recently become directly involved in real love, and it's wonderful so far. I have found that over the last several years, all the best advice from everybody seems to be to pretty much be the same. Love fully, honestly, and completely, and life will be better. That's a pretty good summary. I was having an empty day and came to the website where I began to go through archived videos. Then I found a 3-part video regarding the lady who was verbally abused. I don't remember that video, but we'll continue. While I agree with the principles of what Greg stated in his advice to her, this is always a lead up to, but, and I truly believe he understands how nasty abuse can be, even if it is not physical, I do not believe he truly understands the fragile state a person, woman or man, in that position is in. A person in this situation has often lost themselves so completely the rational mind does not exist, at least not at the surface where it is safe to access it. So, do I understand? I couldn't possibly claim to ever understand another person. But understand the situation? Yeah. When you're empty enough, to continue your description, when we're empty, we're drowning and insane. So, do I get that we're not rational? Yeah. Pretty much every time I use a getting and protecting behavior, am I not insane? Because how many times have I used that behavior before? Take anger. How many times have I used anger in my life? Oh my, 14,200 times at least. And in all of those times, did it ever make me feel loved, loving, or happy? Not one time. So if I get angry the next time, after 14,200 proofs that it doesn't work, that would make me what? Nuts, insane, irrational, all the things that you described. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's life-sucking to keep using getting and protecting behaviors when we know that they're not going to work. So, yeah, I get that it's irrational. I was quite alarmed, you continue, to hear him advise the person to hear what the abusive spouse was saying, to see the truth in it and offer to fix it in an attempt to hear that person. Again, don't get me wrong, I know there's a place for this strategy. What I'm afraid for is that the people who are in abusive relationships, that they would hear this. If you could just be nicer, better, more perfect, it will all get better. They are not in a place of personal strength enough to objectively determine which of the abusive comments contain valid points and which do not, because many do not. Without this judgment, it is possible to become completely obsessed with doing everything in your power to make another person love you to no avail, which is the opposite of what I understand real love to be about. I know that you cannot expect the abuser to offer you understanding and unconditional love, and someone has to start somewhere, but I'm desperately hoping there's a smaller step in between that is being offered to those in extreme situations. When somebody is abusive, what I'm suggesting, and I'm not familiar with that particular video that you saw, is that you offer what you can. If you can be understanding, accepting, offer words of compassion to the angry, abusive, if you like, person, although I don't like the word abuse very much because it implies we're victims, but if you can offer that, then that's what will work best. Obviously, when somebody's empty and using getting and protecting behaviors, they don't feel loved. So if you can offer even just a smidgen of love, of understanding, it can be transformative. But I'm not saying that you should, because if you ain't got it, you ain't got it. And if you're being attacked and you become irrational yourself, well, clearly you're not going to be able to love the attacking person. I mean, duh, you can't do it. So you give what you can. And if you're in a situation where what you can offer is nothing, you're being attacked by someone, you got nothing to offer, then you leave. And what you do is you leave that situation and you leave it as graciously as possible. As opposed to saying, well, if you're going to talk to me like that, then I'm out of here. That's just an attack. It really is. That's not leaving. That's attacking. But you can say, I'm not handling this very well. And that's my problem. So I'm going to go and think about this for a little bit, and then we can talk later. Now, I'm not stupid. I realize that attacking people are then going to keep attacking. Most people are going to say, well, you're going to hear this, or you always run away, or blah, blah, blah. Attacking people love to keep attacking. Why? Because they get a sense of power out of it. So you say, I know it's strange, and it may be just my peculiarity, but I am going to stop this conversation. I'll resume it with you at 4 o'clock. People hear it much better when they know that you're eventually going to listen to them. So then what do? You got no love to give. So then you go and find somebody who does. That's when you go call a wise man or a wise woman and say, I'm in completely over my head. I have no idea what to do. And I handle calls from people like this every day. You know, people call and they go, I can't handle this. All right. I don't then say, well, go back and be loving. Because if they could do that, they would have. So we talk. I just love them, listen to them, metaphorically hold their hand over the phone, just be understanding. Yeah, and the words that I say don't matter. Just listen to them and love them. And then, as they feel more loved, most of the time they can go back and offer words of understanding. But at no point am I advocating that somebody go back and try to please them. No. Or make them, or if they did the right thing, then they'd be loved. No. In fact, that's exactly what we talk about in our call, is that no matter what they did to placate this person, no matter what they did to please them, soothe them by giving them what they want in the moment, it probably wouldn't work. At least giving them what they demand. Whereas going and listening to them, which is different than giving them what they want, can be really transformative. Unconditional love doesn't mean when somebody's screaming at you, well, I want banana pudding. It's often not the loving thing to give them exactly what they want. But to go back and express your understanding of their needs, simply going back to the conversation and not reacting with fear and anger can be transformative. So that's what I'm suggesting. That we love them the best they can, but not expect them to be loving and not expect ourselves to be. I mean, you know, in the past I've said, don't milk the bull. Well, don't make him wear a dress either. You can't change people from what they are, but you can love them where they are if you have it to give. This viewer says, in coming to understand real love and its attributes, I found myself searching for perfect examples of it. I don't believe any physical life form can fully perfect this part of themselves. Because, you know, we all have needs. But I believe that some individuals have reached a greater degree of understanding than others. I've come to view some individuals as great practitioners of real love, though I know them through their writings and the records of history, not by personal relationships. Although I'm grateful that I've been able to learn from these individuals, never mind by which means, I would like to know who others believe are teeming with acts of real love and timeless wisdom. You know, your sense of doubt is very understandable, because although we read stories of people being loving, you know, those are usually kind of cold, distilled from entire lifetimes of behavior. And even these people whose loving acts we read, often if we study their entire life history, it turns out that, they have feet of clay just like the rest of us. And, you know, screwed up often just as much as the rest of us. So, you know, we kind of get a little skeptical that the only examples of love we've seen are read in books. We see them on, you know, bios on DVDs. We begin to wonder if it's possible. We have to create these moments in many cases, and you'll find them as you simply practice being truthful. We tend not to see unconditional love because we ourselves are using getting and protecting behaviors and constantly pretending to be what we're not. So when do we ever create an opportunity for somebody to be loving? The simplest moments can be examples of unconditional love. You call a friend, and instead of lying and saying, oh, you know, I'm so mad at this person because of what they did, you're never going to feel loved in a situation like that. You're only going to feel victim vindicated. You're going to feel the power of a victim. It's worthless. If instead of doing that, you were to say, yesterday I was having an argument with somebody, and I realize now I wasn't listening. I was being selfish. I wasn't thinking of them. I was just trying to fill my own need for recognition, power, attention, and so on. You say that to a friend, and if your friend goes, whoa, that was cool. I don't think I've ever heard anybody be honest like that. In that undramatic moment, you got a sense of unconditional acceptance, of unconditional love. You just experienced a second or two of what you've been looking for. You keep telling the truth, you will attract people to you who are looking for opportunities to be unconditionally loving. So, you want to find it? We tend to be kind of lazy. We sit back and go, well, where's the love? Like the old commercial, where's the beef? As opposed to going out and creating the opportunities for people to develop their own capacity to be loving toward us. Do that, you'll find it. Here's somebody who says, I was having brunch at a restaurant with my son, Mike. At one point, when he wasn't talking or doing anything that involved me, I picked up my cell phone to make a call to a friend. My son said, "What are you doing?" And I said, well, I'm making a call. He was obviously unhappy with the fact that I was making the call, but I can make a call if I want to, so I made the call anyway. And then after the call, he sulked and wouldn't talk to me. I told him that I wanted him to talk to me, but he refused. You can just see this tug-of-war developing. So I told him that if he didn't talk, I would not allow him to do something that he had planned to do that weekend. He still wouldn't talk. He's going to win this war. So I added another consequence, like I'd read about in the book. Later at home, he came to see me and he said that he shouldn't have behaved like he did. He said sometimes something just comes over him and then he sulks or gets mad. He wondered if his consequences could be modified. But I said I couldn't do that without teaching him the wrong principle. And he said he understood. So what do I do about this? We tend to leap to, because I talk about consequences, in the book and elsewhere. We tend to leap to consequences to modify our kids' behaviors. And, consequences have a place after we have loved and taught, and loved and taught, and loved and taught again. And if you read the parenting book, you'll see that. It says, love and teach them, and then it says, after you loved and taught them, you know what you have to do now? Love and teach them again. Whole chapter like that. It says, we just finished a whole chapter of love and teach them, and now the next chapter is, guess what? Love and teach them more. Because that's the emphasis. Occasionally, my child's behavior persists when their behavior is irresponsible. We're talking about a kid who wrecks the car. We're talking about a kid who drives too fast, a kid who doesn't clean his room, a kid who doesn't study, a kid who doesn't complete responsible tasks. Then we apply natural consequences without anger so that they will be motivated to make the right choice. But on the whole, you don't apply consequences to modify a kid's feelings. And that's what you're doing. The kid was mad at you. You didn't like it that he was mad at you. You found it inconvenient that the child was spewing his disapproval at you by not talking to you, so you wanted to modify that as opposed to actually talking to the kid and loving the kid instead of saying, well, you can't do that to me, which is pretty much the message you were conveying. So you screwed up by applying the consequences, and you screwed up by having the conversation on the phone in the first place. If you and I are having dinner at a place, and I just pull out a cell phone and start talking to somebody else. Are you kidding me? How rude is that? And it doesn't matter if I excuse it, like you did, by saying, well, did I say I pulled out the cell phone? Or you? Can't remember. Me. It doesn't matter if I excuse it by saying, well, but you weren't doing anything in that moment. What? No, it's kind of silly looking when it's between two adults. We think we can get away with it with a kid. If you and I are having a conversation, or if we're just doing something together and you're not speaking, just because you're not speaking doesn't give me the right to go, oh, well, I'm tired of attending to you, so now I'll get on the phone and talk to somebody else. No. Now, if you have an important phone call, something you want to communicate, you forgot something, need to make this call, then you say to your son, I forgot to do something. I apologize because this is going to interrupt our time together. Now, you may not be interrupting an ongoing conversation, but it's still his time. So you say, I need to make this call, and I apologize because I didn't think about it. But if it's, I'm just checking in with you to be sure you're going to be okay. I really got to make this call. Now, if he's a little annoyed by it, it's not like if he says no, you can't make the call. But now, see what you're doing is you're checking in with the kid. You're going, I realize I was thoughtless. I need to make this call, and I'm just checking with you. And if he goes, well, you go, again, I apologize, but I've got to make this call. So I'm just communicating to you that I didn't think about it, and I'll be back with you in 94 seconds. You give him an approximation of how long it's going to take. I mean, if it's going to be a 15-minute call, don't make it. Wait till you're done. Then it turns out that the person who sent me this note, I kind of gave a short version of this answer to him, and he did. He sat down with his kid later, and he said, I screwed up. I shouldn't have gotten on the phone, shouldn't have given you consequences, so heck with all that, let's just start over. And the kid went, whoa, neat. We expect our kids to be wrong. We expect our kids to learn, by making their mistakes. But then we don't show them an example of what, admitting our mistakes, admitting that we're wrong, and changing and learning looks like. So this was really remarkable that this dad was willing to tell his kid that he blew it. A way better lesson to teach a kid than to go, nope, we're going to stick with those dang consequences because what's the real reason? Because I'm the dad and I'm bigger and I have the money and the power. That's not a great lesson to give a kid, So we've had some, delightful questions, and wish we had time for more, but we don't. So next Tuesday we'll get together. We'll talk more about the issues that you send in to me, and hopefully all learn to be a little more loving and kind and compassionate to each other, which is making a big difference in the world. Between now and then, remember that it's always about real love. See you next Tuesday.